Yeah, my name is Jim Lucas, and my brothers Richard and Ron are both with Christian Horizons in Peterborough. Richard is a year younger than me. He's in his late 60s, and Ron is about 5 years younger than Richard. Ron is less special needs than Richard is. He's a little more self-sufficient. Richard needs a lot more care. They're both very special human beings. We grew up throughout our lives with them, and we still look after them because our parents are deceased, and we're keenly involved in what happens to them on a day-to-day basis, and we stay in close communication with Christian Horizons. Okay, Ron is very interested in bowling. He does very well at it. He's won a number of trophies. He loves to do paint by numbers, and Christian Horizons through the SPELL program has encouraged him, and what they've done is made copies of some of his paintings. Some of them have been sold, and they've made them into little cards that people can use to send out thank you notes. He likes to cycle, he loves music, he loves to sing, and he has a guitar that he attempts to play, and he just has a wonderful time with that. He also does a lot of volunteer work in the community, which they've arranged. He cuts lawns, so he feels that he's needed, and it's been great. Richard loves toys. He collects toys. He has them all over his room. He doesn't have many interests, but he does go bowling occasionally with Ron in the same league. And he's more laid back, he's quiet-spirited. He can get fixated on a particular subject and stay with it. But he's gentle. By and large, he's a gentle person, and fits in well with the family that he resides with. Fortunately, Christian Horizons, they just came to our assistance, and they found a spot in one of their homes in Peterborough. We moved my mom and dad to Peterborough. My dad, on the day of arriving in Peterborough, had a relapse, went into hospital and died. 5 days later, went to be with the Lord. But he knew at the time that we had Ronnie placed in a home where he would be well cared for, and that my mom wouldn't have that extra stress. After a period of time, we would visit with Richard, and it became evident that he was having some real problems in the accommodation that he was in. There was a lack of supervision. He was allowed to indulge in sweets and candy and this sort of thing, and Coca-Cola. And the end result was that he developed a serious problem with diabetes and went into a diabetic coma. Once again, I approached Christian Horizons, and through working with them, they found a spot for Richard. And now Richard's been living with them for about 7 or 8 years. Ron, on the other hand, is in House 8 in Peterborough, ironically in the room that Richard had at one point. And Ron is involved in the SPELL program, as is Richard. But through Christian Horizons and through the SPELL program, Ron has developed a sense of personal worth and self-respect. He's learning to do things. He's learning to write. He's being encouraged to carry on with his number painting. He has been provided with community work that he can do, volunteering in various organizations and cutting lawns and things like that. So we're really ecstatic about the development that we've seen in Ron's life, and we're also keenly pleased with the way that Richard has become stabilized in a family environment. So we know that our parents would be really happy that that both of those guys are now being well cared for at Christian Horizons. One of the regrets that we have as family, particularly my sister and I, who shares the responsibility that I hold in looking after their best interest, is that Ron was not allowed to, because of the love my parents had for him and their determination to keep him in the home environment, he wasn't able to develop in some areas, such as learning life skills, and through the professional training that he can get when he's in an environment like Christian Horizons provides for him. So we wish many times that earlier on, both Richard and Ron could have experienced that kind of opportunity. But the good news is, in recent years, that has been happening more and more. And so, in large measure, their lives have been enhanced, as I've mentioned earlier, in terms of having a sense of self-worth, that they're learning something, that they can do things. Another small example, Ron loves cars, but he could never drive and always felt inferior. And just about a week ago, they took him to drive a go-kart, and he just had a great time, and he handled it on his own. So now he thinks he can drive, you know, and I think those are the small examples of things that they've done to stimulate each of these guys and make them feel like they're whole persons. And for us, that's fantastic. We sit down and we do a review with them every 6 months on the goals that Christian Horizon has and the goals that the men have. They're allowed to express what they'd like to do, where they'd like to develop, how they'd like to go forward, and their interests. And so we monitor that and we determine what the immediate goals are to expand. It might be things like family visits, or it might be trips to a zoo, or it might be vacations, which they take on a regular basis with Christian Horizon staff. And it gives them something to look forward to. My brother Ron enjoys going to visit with my sister, and she does that every 4 to 6 weeks. She takes him to her home, and she and her husband host him for a weekend. It's not quite as flexible to do that with Richard, but we can do it with Ron. And we try to involve Ron in family contact as much as we possibly can. So that becomes a goal for his immediate future at Christian Horizons. And staff support us in that effort. Quite often, they will drive Ronnie up to Barrie to visit with my sister, and she will in turn take him home. So she's provided a very valuable role in that, but it's because it's facilitated through Christian Horizons that it really works, and they help Ronnie to plan for his visits to visit with family. As family, we don't get to say to too many people, you know, we don't have an audience to say we're so pleased with Christian Horizons. It sounds like a commercial for them, but it really isn't. They have been an incredible part of the story of our brothers and our family for now 16 years. Christian Horizons is able to provide committed, Christ-centered staff who do not just see their involvement as a job, but rather as a ministry. Richard and Ronald feel like they finally belong. They are truly at home. This is something that we as family have hoped for and prayed for a long time. Before Dad's passing, he saw his dream fulfilled for Ron, having a place to belong. And Mom went to be with the Lord as well, having the peace of mind that Richard too was finally in the right place.